Hello everyone! Kyle Kingston is an arrogant high school kid who thinks that only irresistible good-looking guys like him get the best out of life. Kyle has a habit of disrespecting people who don't meet his beauty standards. But one day, he happens to offend a real witch. Kendra puts a curse on him, and the hero now looks as ugly as his soul. To become handsome again, Kyle must find someone who would love him in the guise of a horrible monster. Will he be able to make things right when even his own father turns his back on him? Attractive Kyle Kingston runs for president of the Green Committee. Kyle firmly believes that handsome men rule the world and gives a fiery speech at the debate about how irresistible he is. He's confident in the public support, even though he doesn't really care about nature. Kyle openly confesses this to his constituents, who nevertheless respond with thunderous applause. The only people who don't applaud the smug candidate are his rival Kendra, who hastily leaves the hall, and a shy student, Lindy, who also clearly has no chance of beating Kyle in the election. After the speech, Kyle gets an unpleasant surprise from Kendra. The girl has defaced all of his posters with a highlighter. Kendra urges Kyle to drop out of the election to give way to someone who really deserves the position, like Lindy. But Kyle intends to keep using his looks to get what he wants in life. He makes a caustic remark to Kendra about the way she looks.
They're important to everyone, except you, clearly.
At home, however, Kyle doesn't get much attention. His father, Rob, a successful businessman, is busy talking on the phone with his business partners and is not interested in his son's life. Only his patient housekeeper, Zola, who is already used to the wealthy people's habits, shows kindness and empathy to Kyle. The next day, Kyle is congratulated on his election victory. Kendra's anger over his victory is flattering to him, but he decides to show generosity to his frustrated rival. As a gesture of reconciliation, he invites her to a Green Committee VIP party. Giving it some thought, Kendra agrees to his proposal and says that she'll give him an opportunity to patch things up because only an idiot would offend a witch. The party doesn't work out for Kyle right from the start. His girlfriend reprimands him for the pathetic rose he brought and defiantly dumps him on the dance floor. Kyle turns his attention to Lindy, who works here as a waitress. The girl tells him that she is saving up money for a trip to Machu Picchu and has to work another year to make her dream come true. Even though her shift ends in the middle of the party, Lindy has no intention of having fun and prefers to go home. Before that, Lindy nervously asks Kyle if they could snap a photo together, telling him it's for the school paper. He agrees and takes it a step further by placing the rose on her dress, seeing the unrequited love in her gaze. Kyle tells his friend, who has noticed this romantic moment, that he only talked to the girl out of pity. He then finds a new opportunity to stroke his ego when Kendra shows up at the party.
You actually bought it. You bought that I'd hook up with you?
Calling the girl a self-mutilated, tattooed Frankenskank, the smug, handsome guy mocks her naivety and demands that she pay for her ticket so she could stay at the party. The girl stands firm in the face of Kyle's insults and promises him that he will come to regret his behavior. These words make him feel uncomfortable, and later on the dance floor, he suffers from a terrible headache, which makes him see double. After leaving the party and struggling to get home, Kyle goes out to the balcony to catch his breath in the fresh night air, where to his surprise, Kendra is waiting for him. The girl declares that she has come to stand up for all the people that Kyle has disrespected and belittled because of their looks. She takes his hand, and all of a sudden, a tattoo of a tree with white flowers appears on it, then vanishes just as quickly.
When the spring flowers bloom again, the year is up.
If Kyle doesn't hear the words "I love you" by the end of the year, the witch declares he will remain forever a hideous monster, as hideous as his soul. In the evening, Kyle's father gets back home. Kyle meets him in complete darkness and begs him not to turn on the lights, but the father doesn't listen, and to Kyle's horror, sees his disfigured face. The disturbed man immediately calls for a doctor. Rob shares the same disdain for unattractive people and gets angry, demanding that the doctor fix his son. He states that the situation can't be fixed even with surgery and skin transplants, but Rob doesn't want to hear any of this.
He doesn't want to live life looking like this. We'd risk anything.
What?
Kyle storms out of the room in a fit of anger after realizing what his father thinks of him now. He heads to the underground parking lot where his father catches up to him and tries to sweet-talk him with promises to come up with a solution. Turns out, Rob's plan is to kick his unattractive son out of the house. He pretends he wants to give his son a quiet and safe haven where he won't always be stared at. He entrusts his housekeeper Zola with the responsibility of looking after his son and promises to check on him later, but he leaves his son locked up in a cage and never visits him again, using his busy schedule as an excuse. 5 months later, a stranger shows up on the doorstep of Kyle's apartment. It's a blind tutor named Will, hired by Rob, who will now live with Kyle and help him with his school curriculum. Abandoned by his father and trying to understand how he could treat him like that, Kyle talks to Zola about what happened. Turns out, the woman had to leave her 3 children behind in her home country due to paperwork issues. The pain of separation has haunted her for 5 years, and she's convinced that Rob will turn around. However, Kyle is skeptical about that, especially since his father hasn't answered any of his messages. The next morning, Kyle catches the blind Will throwing darts. Will has already heard Kyle's story, and he tries to cheer up and distract Kyle, who refuses to offer to practice calculus. He loses himself in social media, reminiscing about his past life. While scrolling through old photos, he stumbles upon one of him and Lindy, where her radiant smile catches his attention. That night, he watches Lindy, who's reading a book in her room. Next time, Kyle follows her down the street, observing the girl's everyday life and gradually falling for her. Will and Zola notice Kyle sneaking outside at night, and he timidly confesses that he's interested in a girl. So far, he hasn't even talked to her, but the tutor tries to be supportive.
Baby steps. You think you might say, "What's up?"
Kyle has no intention of giving up, and he continues to watch Lindy from a distance. On another outing, he realizes that the girl is in trouble. When she returns home, she can't find her father and rushes to look for him in the grim back alleys. Lindy finds her dad when he's threatened by armed thugs demanding money from him, and Kyle intervenes, saving the man from a deadly danger. During the fight, however, Lindy falls down the stairs and passes out, and Kyle immediately rushes to her rescue. And upon returning to the scene of the showdown, he discovers that her father shot one of the thugs dead.
You killed him. Your daughter. For my brother.
Kyle decides to use this situation to his advantage and convinces the man to allow him to take Lindy away to safety, or else Kyle has to provide the police with the evidence of his crime. The next day, Lindy's father takes her to Kyle's house, where they are greeted by Zola, who tells the house belongs to someone named Hunter. Lindy is furious about the whole situation and doesn't want to see her dad anymore. She feels cut off from her usual life, her school, and her friends. She stays in her room and rejects any of Kyle's attempts to talk to her, even when he tries to win her over with expensive gifts. Hunter follows Zola's advice and chooses a gift that matches the girl's personality, opting for a box of candies. As luck would have it, he overhears her talking on the phone about her canceled trip to Machu Picchu, which she had been looking forward to for a year. However, when Lindy spots him, they finally get a chance to talk. Hunter explains that the girl can't leave because her father loves her very much, and she gratefully accepts the candy. Encouraged, Hunter begins to write a letter for Lindy every day until the moment he can finally hand it over to her. Will and Kyle discuss Kyle's brilliant idea, building a rooftop greenhouse to grow roses for Lindy. Hunter doesn't waste any time and spends his days working on the roof, which is noticed by Lindy. Intrigued by what's happening and by the attention of a mysterious suitor, Lindy tries to strike up a conversation with Hunter and catches him in the living room watching TV. Kyle hides his face from her under a hood, but her friendly attitude inspires him to make a decisive move. To his surprise, the girl is not intimidated by his disfigured face, and after promising to join his lessons with Will, goes back to her room. The next morning, Hunter himself asks the tutor to finally begin teaching him and start with a poetry class to impress Lindy. During an impromptu lesson, Kyle invites the girl into a greenhouse where roses grow, which greatly impresses her. Will and Zola notice that the poem put the couple in a romantic mood, so they leave to give them some time alone. The couple spends day after day together until the first rose blooms on Kyle's arm. Realizing his time is running out, he seeks out the witch. Kyle desperately begs Kendra to give him more time, but she refuses, for magic cannot be undone. Having no luck with Kendra, Kyle decides to take drastic measures when suddenly, he sees a photo of himself on Lindy's laptop. The girl has no idea that Kyle is standing right in front of her and explains that she had a crush on the guy, but he only talked to her once and then disappeared without a trace. Kyle invites Lindy to go on a date with him, and they go to the zoo, where he reveals a secret spot he used to hide in as a child, after his dad told him that his mother left her son. Moved by his openness, Lindy begins to see past his rough exterior and discovers his beautiful soul. They end up spending the rest of the night on the roof, watching the first rays of the rising sun. As Kyle's time was running out, he decides to take Lindy on a romantic date to his father's cottage by the lake. He hopes to confess his feelings to her there. While they are walking by the lake, Kyle gives Lindy a bundle of letters as a present. He leans in to kiss her, but the moment is ruined when Lindy's phone rings. Her father is in trouble again, and she has to rush to the hospital to see him. Hunter brings Lindy to the train station, where she hurries to the train, promising to call as soon as her father is okay again. As she says goodbye, she stops to say something, but instead of a confession, Kyle hears other words.
You're a good friend.
The train doors close, and after sitting down in a chair, the girl says goodbye to him and unwraps a bundle of letters, intending to read them. After learning of Kyle's true feelings for her from the letters, Lindy tries to call him for many days. Unfortunately, Kyle is too hurt by the words good friend and doesn't answer her calls. He watches as more signs of the curse appeared on his arm. However, on the day before Lindy's departure to Machu Picchu, Will and Zola manage to persuade Kyle to go see her. Overcoming his fear of exposing his hideous appearance to the public, Hunter arrives at the school to say goodbye to Lindy before her departure. He manages to catch her just as she's about to board the bus and confesses his feelings for her, which makes her less angry with him for not answering her calls. Lindy kisses him as a sign of forgiveness in front of the onlookers and starts walking away, only to stop after taking a few steps.
I love you.
Lindy leaves to board the bus to Machu Picchu, and Kyle sees in the glass door reflection that the curse disappeared and he now looks normal again. He's ready to wait for his beloved to return from her trip, but Lindy suddenly shows up on the street. She stumbles into Kyle, frantically explaining that she's searching for Hunter. She rushes down the street in a desperate attempt to find her beloved, but when Kyle's phone rings in his pocket, she realizes that he's right in front of her. As always, check out the movie name in the description. Let us know in the comments how important that looks are for you, and whether you could disregard them completely like Lindy did. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel to see even more cool recaps.